A warning: if there are children in the room, the content here may be disturbing.
Some students telling me they thought this was a drill, that there had been a fire alarm earlier in the day, and that they had been told a few weeks ago that there would be an active shooter drill, but never did they imagine it would turn out to be the real thing.
His father is a retired FBI agent, so he recognized immediately that this was a gun. This wasn't a firecracker, this wasn't a drill.
We really thought this was a drill throughout much of it, surprisingly, because teachers and students had been talking about having a possible code red drill.
About 2:20 or so, the fire alarm went off, and I thought it was rather unusual because we just had a fire alarm drill at 9:30, so I told the kids, hold on for a bit.
This is Alex's view. This recording was taken at 9:32, February 14th, 2018. Alex, are you okay with me recording this?
Yes, I am okay with you recording this.
Okay.
I personally have rallied for, gun rights and less control, not necessarily less control, but this experience has definitely changed my viewpoints. I wanted to be a junior NRA member. I wanted to learn how to hunt. I was always fascinated by guns as a young girl, but this experience was so traumatizing to the point where now I can't even fathom the idea of a gun in my house or on my bodice.
They could be practicing a code red. They talked about doing this. They even talked about police coming on and, shooting blanks, to see what would happen, and I said, it's kind of weird.
We thought this was a drill initially because we had been having rumors that there was going to be a code red drill for a while.
We're now learning more about the timeline of Cruz's murderous rampage. He arrived at the high school in an Uber at 2:19 p.m. and made his way into the east building of the school compound.
The just published video shows the moment shooter Nicholas Cruz entered a stairway in the school and, while loading his semi-automatic rifle, warns a student who happens to walk by.
Freshman Chris McKenna.
He started to take the bullets and load in the gun. I froze. He then said to me, "Get out of here. It's going to start getting messy."
Where was he loading his gun?
On the stairwell, the bottom stairwell. He took it out of like a gun case that kind of looked like a guitar case.
Why do you think he spared you?
I don't think he was fully reloaded yet. I don't think his bullets were in.
We have been practicing drills for months since we got back from winter break and even before that. So when it first happened, we all thought it was a drill. And as soon as it got closer and closer, we all ran towards my teacher's desk for safety. As the shooting was going on, you can hear the glass shattering through all the halls and the bullet holes piercing the walls and everything, and it was just so horrible.
Still, she managed to call her father, who works for the sheriff's office. He went to the school and found Hannah.
It was absolutely horrifying, but we actually thought it was a drill initially because we had been hearing about having a possible code red drill.
You thought it was a drill, and you only knew it was real from looking at headlines in your phone?
Yeah, on our phone.
At first, it sounded like firecrackers because we had been planning for an event to happen, something like a staged area where we're going to do an active shooter scenario. So the first 7 gunshots that I originally had heard just sounded like firecrackers because they were so far away and it echoed through a hallway.
19-year-old Nicholas Cruz, seen here loading an AR-15 in the hallway of Stoneman Douglas High School. Doors unlocked, the gates open, allowing Cruz to get inside undetected. Moments later, Cruz killing 17 students and staff.
This is a bit of an exaggeration, but it seemed like every one of them knew this kid, this Nicholas Cruz.
Absolutely.
Did you know him?
Yes. Briefly, obviously we weren't friends, but we existed within the same JROTC program. He was friends with some of my closest friends, and that's when I heard 2 shots fired in the hallway. The first 2 shots, like, everyone in the room froze, right? Everyone was under the impression it was a drill. That's what we said to each other. And the 3rd shot was fired, and that's when we knew that it wasn't a drill. So I looked up and I looked in the window and I saw him like firing through the window. And then at one point he stopped firing altogether and just like peered in and looked in and then walked away.
Did you know who it was?
Not initially, no, because I was under the impression there was multiple of them because of how many shots were being fired. It wasn't until I got to the hospital that I started making the connections, and then it clicked that it was Nicholas Cruz.
Basically, I was just in my biology class, right, and the drill went off, and we all thought it was a fire drill. So we started getting out, and then I heard some shots, and everybody started running. We just hid in the JROTC room, and we were all pretty scared, but it was a really scary situation. We didn't really know what was going on. thought it was a drill at first, but...
So basically, we went over a code red, which is gun on campus. We went over that about a month ago, and there was rumors going around the school that there would be a fake shooting to see how the students would prepare for it and stuff like that. So when we first heard the 2 gunshots, nobody did anything because we thought that that was a drill, you know?
Yeah.
And when we got down the stairs, because my room is on the 2nd floor, I heard what turned out to be gunshots. At first, it sounded like firecrackers. And once I heard that, I ran back upstairs and locked the door, and we just, you know, kind of hunkered down until we were released. I was in my room with them for a little over 2.5 hours.
Turns out that teacher is actually my cousin, Sarah Lerner, who is a journalism and English teacher.
The suspect then took the east stairwell to the 3rd floor. He dropped his rifle and backpack, ran down the stairs. He exited building 12 and ran towards the tennis courts.
One classmate who is counting her blessings says she spoke to Cruz as he was walking out with the evacuating students.
He was trouble in middle school, so I kind of joked to him about it and said, I'm surprised you weren't the one who did it. And he just gave me a huh. As I was going down the stairs, I heard a couple shots fired. Everyone was freaking out, saying that it was a gun. And as we were walking, the whole class together, I actually was speaking to the suspect, Nicholas Cruz. And as I was speaking to him...
You were walking down the hall. He had already fired at that time.
Yes, sir, with him.
Weren't you scared?
In the moment I wasn't, because there was obviously definitely another shooter involved, but...
Oh, you think he was not the only one?
No, definitely not.
Why do you say that?
Because when shots were fired, I saw him after the fact. So, and the shots were coming from the other part of the building. So there definitely had to be 2 shooters involved, I believe.
That's the first I've heard of that.
The suspect then took the east stairwell to the 3rd floor. He dropped his rifle and backpack, ran down the stairs. He exited building 12 and ran towards the tennis courts.
For the first time, we see Cruz running away from the school.
And we found the picture of him, and we just started sending it out to law enforcement. Me, Colton, and our first sergeant, we all got on our phones and tried to get through. We all had pretty crappy service, but we sent the photo out to law enforcement, and we're pretty sure it helped them arrest him.
Cruz even ordered a sandwich, and despite the carnage he had caused, he sat at a table and ate his meal. Then he headed for home. At 3:41, Cruz was spotted by a police officer who heard the description of the suspect over his radio.
Nicholas, I think we spell his name Nikolas, Cruz, was the killer. He is in custody, and we've already began to dissect his websites and the things that social media that he was on, and some of the things that have come to mind are very, very disturbing. Every day we're learning something more and more about the killer. That we've had approximately 20 calls for service over the last few years regarding the killer. I'm sure it talked about the psyche of the killer, but my hypothesis would be it would be more the killer. We want to try and find out why this killer did what he did, and that at the end of the day, make no mistake about it, America, the only one to blame for this incident is the killer himself.
Some new information. The gunman was wearing a gas mask. He had smoke grenades. He hit the fire alarm.
The killer never was in possession of a gas mask or any type of smoke grenades.
Well, let me give you some new information. The gunman was wearing a gas mask and had smoke grenades. He then went and activated the alarm system.
Again, there was no gas mask or no gas grenades at any time.
A warning: if there are children in the room, the content here may be disturbing.
When everybody realized that and he started coming up the stairs, everybody started running back to the room. their room, there was like a stampede of people just sprinting back to their rooms. We were all waiting at the door, and he comes over and he unlocks the door, and we all get in. And I see this figure come up the stairs with this pistol, and I guess that was him.
Is this what's happening? And then we realized, like, we thought this was a drill because they said they'll use blanks in a drill. And then they taught us, they said that if there's like a fire drill, they want all the kids to run out, so that would make an easier shot. And then you just hear a bunch of like pounding, but I thought it was someone hitting something. All the kids to go outside so they could start shooting up. So they started shooting from the first floor up, because there's only 2 exits in the freshman building, so everybody started running to the other exits, but that's when the other shooter started coming up. We finally got out, and like they started yelling at us to keep focused and pay attention ahead, the army people, because they didn't want us to see the bodies that they hid in the corner. They were putting mats over them so we wouldn't see them. They were trying to.
So you think there was more than? Do you think there was more than one shooter?
There's 3 shootings. That's what I hear. Definitely. I know 1 teacher's dead. That's what I like. There's 2 security guards who are dead. The teacher's dead, and then my other teacher, she got shot in the arm, but she's fine. She just started walking home too.
Because at that point, I mean, you were hearing gunshots go off, and it was ricocheting with the sound off the other building, and we didn't know whether it was 1 shooter or 2. And one of the boys that initially ran into my room was like, "There's 2 shooters on." And
I was about 2 feet away from my door. All of a sudden, I heard gunshots in the stairwell, which is about 20 feet away from my room. And then I suddenly saw the shooter about 20 feet from me, standing at the end of the hallway, actively shooting down the hallway, just a barrage of bullets. And I'm staring at him thinking, why is the police here? This is strange, because he's in full metal garb, helmet, face mask, bulletproof armor, shooting this rifle that I've never seen before. I don't know when I decided it was the right time to close the door. I grabbed the handle with both hands, and that's when I got nicked. I had a good visual of him, which is why I yelled at him to shut his door now. I heard him shoot a barrage of bullets into Mr. Beagle's room. And then he came to my room and shot about 4 or 5 shots into my room, breaking the glass of my door. There's a rectangular piece of glass. And I heard him continuously shooting down the hallway. And I never really knew when he left, because we just thought he was still there.
I assume that it's a code red drill, because they told us earlier in the day that we're going to be having a code red drill. I assumed it was blanks. There's the shooters already up at the tail end of the hall, at the other end, the east end of the building. Heard 2 shots. I didn't see it, but then those 2 shots would have been my friend Scott Beagle getting shot and killed while trying to save his kids. As I'm going for cover, one of my former students, a kid who's a senior named Joaquin Oliver, screamed, turned, he was shot. At that point, I looked down at the shooter. He looked at me, pointed his AR at me, and started shooting. 19-year-old young man who had trouble. I didn't know that at the time because he had a mask on, so I didn't know who it was. I just saw a guy with a gun shooting at my kids.
The first door I went to was jammed. There was sadly another girl who passed away on the other side, and I could not get it open.
Somehow he managed to run down 3 flights of stairs on that badly wounded ankle. He gave Sergeant Heinrich a complete description of the shooter, what he was wearing, even the type of weapon he was using.
He's like, where do you know where the shooter is? Do you know what he looks like? I was like, yeah. His gray black sweater, hoodie on, and some jeans. He's like, do you know what weapon? I was like, AR-15, and like I described everything to him, and he was like, all right, thank you, and they went off. So it was that was pretty cool though.
We actually thought this was a drill at first, and an extremely realistic one at that. And I in part thought that because of the extremely well executed response of the janitor and everybody else.
She said, I don't know if this is real or fake, because we had rumors going around the school that the police would do a fake code red with fake fake guns, not actual, but sounding real. And I thought at the beginning that this was it was all a drill. It was just a drill. Backpacks thrown everywhere. It was like a movie scene. There was gunpowder all over the floor. It was just so real, but it felt so fake. If I'm gonna be honest, it felt like 5 years, more than that. I was just so scared. I wanted to go home. I wanted the cops, because my grandfather is a former state trooper.
Honestly, most of the time I thought it was a drill. panicked because we had heard things said that we were possibly going to have a code red drill, which is an active shooter drill.